Hello, I'm Earl and welcome to Earl Gibbs Live. With me is the former Prime Minister Sir Maarten. He was also involved in the Parliament of the former Nelson Antilles, Mr. Marcel Gumbs. How are you doing, sir?
Very well. Thank you, Earl. Hello, viewers and listeners. Thanks again for the opportunity to come and share some thoughts and some information with you.
Well, you're one of the existing statesmen here in the island right now, and it's good to have you on the program to speak about many things. You recently resigned from the steering committee.
Yes, thank you again. Yes, I resigned from the steering committee. As you know, I was appointed by the former Prime Minister, Maarten, on the steering committee of the trust fund.
Yeah.
When after the hurricane, the money that the Netherlands provided to us through the World Bank. At the top of that, on the top of that trust fund, there was the steering committee with a representative from the Netherlands, St. Maarten, and from the World Bank. And that steering committee was the committee that the decision-making process, body then, of all the money, allocation of the money. And I was asked by Leona Maarten to represent her on that steering committee, which I did with much pride and much honor. And also when the government changed and Prime Minister Jacobs came in, I had a meeting with her and explained that my resolution stated very clear. I could resign or I could be fired. And she asked me to stay on, and I completed 5 years in the steering committee from 2018 to 2023.
Oh.
And all the money has been allocated, and it was time to move on.
Well, it's quite interesting because when the State Secretary was here in this program, just a little bit over a month ago, she told me she was at your farewell party.
Yes, yes. They had the World Bank and the government and RPB. They had several farewell activities to bid me farewell, leaving the position. And the big question was always, what are you going to do now? Yeah.
What with your experience, you're called upon by many people, I assume.
Well, to tell you the truth, Oral, yes, that's a fact. And I didn't even have a week that I tendered my resignation, that I was called by people from other islands, other countries in the kingdom, if I would be willing to give them a briefing on the functioning of the steering committee. So my experience then on the steering committee, and also my experience working with the World Bank. So that was very interesting, and spent some time explaining and sharing the knowledge with them. But like my whole political career that started back in 1983, once, coming to the end of my term, I sit down and I reflected a bit, and I realized that I was always asked to come in to help to do something, from being absorbed in Parliament to going on the list for parliamentary election to State Secretary, serving as State Secretary of the Netherlands Antilles, as Island Council member, lately as 2015 as Prime Minister, and then in 2018 as on the steering committee of the Trust Fund. So it's always been a pleasure and an honor. And there's also a process with that. It's not only serving, but it's quite an experience, and you gain so much knowledge, as a personal development as a person. So it's always been fun for me.
Well,
so
I have a lot of questions to ask if you don't mind.
Well, you can start asking.
Well, I want to jump back because listening to you, the question came to my mind. How do you feel today as a person who served in the former Nelson Antilles, who served now in St. Maarten as a Prime Minister and also on the steering committee? What do you think was better, the old Nelson Antilles or what we have today?
Yeah, that's a pretty tricky question. I'm going to be honest with you. You can't compare them, which one would be better. I think the decision to change the structure and to get more autonomy for St. Maarten, I think it was well intended. I say it all the time. I personally, I left politics, active politics, in 2006. So I did not experience all the changes and all the preparations. But in my opinion, from early on, I find that they could have done some more preparation and some more locally, for what was to come and realistically. And I find, from my perspective, the folks that fought for that and did not take people with all the necessary experience from a former Netherlands Antilles and involve them and get their idea. You don't have to involve them in taking the decision, but just ask a question, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Because you take no responsibility of departments that very few people had experience of it here in St. Maarten.
Like the Ministry of Justice.
Well, setting up a Ministry of Justice, and in those days there was a lot of things could have maybe set up differently than it is set up now. And no one with experience in Ministry of Justice of the Netherlands Antilles was asked. I served 4 years as State Secretary of the Ministry of Justice, also General Affairs, and
they never ask you anything?
Oh, no. But that was their right, to ask or not to ask. But the whole thing is that I think we haven't lost everything. I think what we need, and I'm a big supporter for that, been talking about it, we need to stand still for a moment. This government, I don't know, their term is, running out. They got just a couple of months maybe. But I hope that the next government that comes in would get a commission together and let's do an evaluation from 10 to now. Because in anything you do, Aurel, any journey you go on, you have to stop for a moment and do an evaluation. Yeah. Look back, not look back for look back's sake to go back to the past, but look back and come forward and see where the errors were made, what could be changed, how can we improve. There's a lot of work needs to be done. For instance, let me give you one example. The 9 months or the 11 months I sat as Prime Minister, when I gave up my consultancy and on the request of Mr. Heidegger to come and help as Prime Minister, immediately what we discovered, me and my cabinet, my team, we have a lot of laws. Our laws for country St. Maarten were prepared by different institutions, okay? So what you have certain laws that are conflicting with each other. And for that, we need, in my opinion, evaluation exercise and come with reparations laws, what they call in Dutch, reparatiewetgeving. So you got to see what's conflicting with each other and correct it, because otherwise you're going to have continuously problem down the road. And that is important to do. And I preach all the time. We also have to understand, Mr. Gibbs, that money is very important when you're running a country. And we have to know what our limitations are where cash is concerned. I use the phrase all the time. We have a taste for champagne. We want to go and drink champagne, but we got just enough money in our pocket to buy a Coca-Cola. And then it doesn't work.
Exactly.
So then you run up a bill, and then the bill will never get paid, or you'll be continuously just paying bills. So we need to do a lot of correction and a lot of evaluation in my sense. But to say that whether I'll prefer to be in the Netherlands Antilles compared to now, no. I think what we have to make the corrections for the next 5, 10 years, evaluate, see how it's going, and maybe come to the conclusion that we cannot carry this, or our children cannot carry it for the next 15, 20 years. Because you're going to need money, and we need to fix the project. Another thing we need to do in St. Maarten, not to take away your time from asking the question, is that the diamond that is called St. Maarten, we have to stop for a moment and clean the diamond, polish it, okay? And we just cannot continue to talk about more and more and more and more. I heard the other day I heard someone saying, we got space for another cruise facility. Where are we going with another cruise facility? You know what? One of the things that we have to find a solution for. If we leave the ship sail on board an excursion to go see planes land, which is a very exciting thing that we have down at Maho, you cannot sell a cruise excursion and then When the time comes to go back to the ship, the traffic is jammed, and we got to get police officers, which we have limited of, in limited transportation that they have, go down and accompany a bus full of tourists with siren to pass traffic and get into the pier. Those are things we got to find solutions for, serious solutions.
Yeah. When you look at St. Maarten today, and the things you just mentioned, we have some very difficult challenges ahead for us as an island. But I remember the last time you was here in this program, you predicted that the current coalition government will not fall. Seems you were right on that one too.
Well, yes. Yeah, I
you remember that?
I said that. Yes, I did say that. And I could have said that because of what I know what happened. Happened so that my daughter is the leader of the PFP party, if I may say that.
Yeah.
It's no propaganda. But you see, let me explain what happened. A government, and our experience on St. Maarten has been that government did not last long. Because what happened in the past? In the past, some friends or somebody who supported a political campaign financially heavy, and he wants whatever, a building permit or whatever he wants to do. Things are not going his way. What he does is he goes to the opposition people and he says, listen, we're going to break the government, but you got to join. So any government that is broken has to have the interest, the opposition has to be interested in joining that government,
right,
for the government to be a new government to continue. In politics, it said, you break a government, you do not break a government before you have a new government in place. And the only place you can get a new government in place is by having the opposition in the new government. And happened so that I think the PFP party said from the beginning that they were not interested in joining government. And that turned out so. There were attempts were made to approach the PFP, I know that, because at a certain moment, the powers that be even tried to talk to me for me to talk to my daughter to convince her to join with them.
Uh-huh.
And I'm saying it here because it's not from one party alone, the UP, but satellites and soldiers from both sides has came to me and said, well, talk to your daughter, and then, they can even bring you back as prime minister. I said, I'm not interested. But so from then, yes, the government is stuck together. They stay together, not because they love each other or because they're working so well each other. It's simply because that the opposition, and I dare say now the entire opposition over the 3.5 years showed no interest in being in government. Otherwise, this government would have gone home a long time.
What surprised you most about the Parliament of St. Maarten? You never served there, but you served in the former Nelson Theatre. But what surprised you most about it?
Well, what surprised me is the level has not stepped up. Over the years.
Up to now, yeah.
Up to now, the level has not stepped up. You listen to the debates. There's a lot of noise, but there's no contents. You know what I mean? A lot of shouting and no contents, and that's because the MPs have to do their homework, has to prepare, and have to be aware and of what's going on, And what you get also, I get this impression, is that a lot of, not only MPs, but in the whole system of governing in public service now, there's a lot of things that other people are preparing, and just giving to the MPs. There's nothing wrong with that. You got to have your staff prepare your stuff. But you have to be aware that if you say something, you got to be able to have a conversation about it,
Yeah.
I can't prepare something and give you to read, and then at the reception, if I ask you a question about it, you got to go, I got to check with my people. No, you got to be aware of the material that you are talking about. But no, it's always, and the Parliament can always go up a notch. The preparation and the debates. If you listen to debates of, let's say they don't have a Parliament, but if you listen to the debate of the Assembly in Anguilla and St. Kitts and the surrounding islands, of course they use a lot of the British system and the British terms, but it's about the contents, what you're saying on the floor of Parliament.
Okay. In case you've just joined us, I'm Oral Gibbs. This is Oral Gibbs Live. My guest is Mr. Marcel Gumbs. He's a former Prime Minister of St. Maarten, former member of the steering committee, held many positions, also state secretary. You were a junior minister in the
Well, they call it junior minister or state secretary.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a position where you're not a full-fledged minister. You basically got your responsibilities, and in your resolution it's clearly stated that you are politically responsible for what is in your resolution. So, for instance, I was 4 years. I was the State Secretary of Justice, General Affairs, and Interior Affairs. In Justice, I had the portfolio of all the prisons. So for 4 years, I was responsible to Parliament on the 3 prisons we had in the country: Coral, Speck, and Curacao, Point Blanche, and the one in Bonaire. And when I mean political responsible, that if Parliament calls to ask questions about the prisons, then you go to Parliament and you have to defend the position of the government.
There are some people now advocating that St. Maarten use those junior state secretaries again.
Yeah, I read somewhere.
Necessary?
No, it's not. In my opinion, it's not necessary. What St. Maarten needs, what the government of St. Maarten needs, in my opinion, is we need, first of all, to fill the positions of secretary generals in the structured organization of government. In the whole government, I think there's only one appointed secretary general, which is of TIAT. The rest are all acting, I think that needs to be addressed to find the qualified person and put them as state secretary, as secretary general, SG of the different ministries. And another thing that needs to be done, because the island is how you would say, we got what, 16 square miles, and the ministries is 7. What we need is not any more chiefs, but we need good qualified Indians to carry out the work. We need to build on certain departments in government that needs to be strengthened. Legal affairs, very important in a government to have well-balanced, well-prepared, staffed legal affairs.
They're struggling there now.
All the departments that are very important are struggling. And our legal department, I don't know how much in it now. I think one time there was 4, but there need to be about 10 good legal brains in the legal department. Back in 2015, the 11 months I served as Prime Minister, yes, we had 10 lawyers in the department. Wow. Yes, give or take, 4 or 5 of them were Dutch, but you got work done. As Prime Minister, I could have sent an email at 8:15 and say I want a resolution saying this, that, and by 11 it was on the desk. So you need that. What we notice now, for instance, is that because of that, a lot of things that have been passed, the law, for instance, on plastic, use of plastic and all of that, that's got about 2 years back and forth between government and Parliament, and takes so long for government to answer. So I think we don't need no state secretaries, in my opinion now, because state secretary, you're going to get the same additional thing, a cabinet of 5 people, then, the cabinet, everybody's have the right to put who they want in the cabinet. That's 5 more salaries to pay. You still have to pay a state secretary. You just need good, prepared, and qualified, on a different level, on a higher level of your staff to be able to produce the work.
Yeah. That's been an issue here too, getting qualified people to work.
It's been an issue. It's been an issue, and trust me, and I'm not trying to be pro whatever or against or contra against anything. We just got to wake up one day and let reality be there that we cannot find the total amount of St. Martiners that is qualified no matter where you go. You got to search very hard and bring them back here to work in those departments.
But when there is a qualified St. Martin, that person is basically sometimes underpaid, belittled, and everything else.
That needs to have the change in it.
Yeah.
It has to be attractive.
Yeah.
And you know what? Again, it comes down to the money issue that I just told you. We want to drink champagne, but we got just enough money to buy a Coca-Cola. Look what happened on Bonaire. Bonaire was struggling always with their education. I'm not promoting the best structures, but you know, we hear all the negative that comes out of Bonaire, Sable, and Statia about the reparation and the this and the that. You know. Very important what is coming up. But we always forget to look at the media, always forget to bring forward the positive part. Last year I was on Bonaire for vacation, and I intentionally drove to every school. I was driven there. Every school in Bonaire is painted. Every classroom has air conditioning in it. Every schoolroom got the most modern blackboards, electronic blackboards to teach children. Not only that, the Bonairans will tell you they themselves didn't know that there were so many Bonairans teachers around the world that were brought in, provided with proper homing, proper salaries, and so. So you got an influx of Bonairean teachers, wherever they found them around the world, in Bonaire teaching now. And the money is there because the money is coming from being in a best structure.
But like you said that, I had the former Prime Minister Wycliffe Smith,
Yeah.
when he was Minister for Education, and I asked him what happened, why the schools were not being rebuilt after Hurricane Irma. He said to me, on this program, it was not the priority of the World Bank for funding on schools. I found that to be very, very strange.
That is very strange, and that is, I beg to differ with the former Minister of Justice.
Education.
The former Minister of Education, because he probably, there was a misinformation somewhere. Because in the whole exercise with the trust fund, the priority is set by government, okay?
Not by the World Bank.
The World Bank doesn't set no priority, and especially with schools. The procedure was and still is that the government, the ministry comes with their projects, go to the council of ministers, it's approved, the prime minister as the liaison, the vocal point with the World Bank, takes these, after a decision is taken, take the projects and send them up to the World Bank via the NRPB, and it comes to the steering committee.
Which you were a member of.
Which I was a member of. Yeah, so there's always been this finger pointing, I would call it, between, oh, it's not us, it's the World Bank. It's not the World Bank, it's the Dutch. But on this island, in government, past governments, and probably, we fail to look in the mirror. We fail to look at ourselves and say, well, you know. I tell you what, it's not about bragging, but it's, I think more I want to share information. In July 2019, there was not one project that was presented yet to the steering committee for financing by the government.
Really?
Yeah, and we pulled off, we convinced the steering committee to a point to allocate $35 million in an envelope without a project for St. Martin. And afterward, then the projects didn't start rolling in. But the World Bank, either there was a misunderstanding somewhere, but the World Bank does not decide on the priority.
How you feel about the way things are going now? It's approaching 6-7 years since Hurricane Irma. Can't even keep track of it now, but it was 2017.
Yeah.
So it was six years. You've been involved in a number of things during that time. You know, when you look at St. Martin today, right, in the last 6 years, what disappoints you most about the way things have been going?
What disappoints me? Look, are you referring to the rebuilding, the reconstruction?
In general. Any particular thing that you might think?
In general, I think we have to get serious, and I stick to one point, and I probably go back, I said it earlier. We have to polish the diamond called St. Martin. We have to sit down and it's part of evaluation and part of preparation. You know, are we going to continue building and building condos and soon GB just had its experience with the virus and thing. They even said they did not even get back to par yet with getting bills out. But there's another part of that. That's one problem GB got. All this building that's going on, condos here, condos left, concrete pouring like crazy. Personally, I think that we're going to run into trouble because is GB prepared to handle all of this? Does GB has a margin to play with providing electricity when all of these buildings come online? On water production?
Very good question.
Yeah. So, and where are we going? Where are we going? And this is nothing against nobody or no agency or nothing. Are we going to just continue importing cars, new brand of cars, and more cars and more cars and more cars? What are we going to do? Isn't it time we got together with the French side on a serious note and say, let us evaluate. What do we want to see St. Maarten looking like 10 years from now? A car jungle? All the metal that we're bringing in, these cars, are they going back out? Are they leaving in time? No. So it's a deterioration of quality of life. It's a deterioration of the environment because every car that comes in, you can bet your dollar that's 5 square meters of land that nothing is growing. And these are things that does bother me sometimes. It's on my mind. You know, what are we going to do to solve that? Water, electricity, traffic, the infrastructure, you know, communications, all of these things. When you build buildings, you know, you got to be prepared to provide the services and the utilities for it.
You know, there's a song, there are more questions than answers.
Yeah.
It seems to like, you know.
Yeah, and that's what we need. I think we need to have a summit of where do we go?
Yeah.
And I think the next government will have to take that decision and have a weekend study and with the French side. Because again, you know, it's
everybody got to come together.
Yeah, but definitely, you know, we come together for a flag, but we don't come together to figure out what we're going to do with the amount of cars we imported. We're not coming together to see what are we going to do with the containers that we're bringing in. There is so much of metal. I guarantee you, if you were to take a camera that can distinguish metal from grass, and you were to put it on Google or whatever and take a picture of somebody, you'd be shocked to see the amount of metal. Yeah. You know, because everybody can import any excavator, any old dump truck, anything without any restriction. And I can understand in the past, it was easy and it was like the freedom. Get them develop, you know, develop. But at a certain moment, what are we going to do? What are we going to do with all these old trucks and old excavators and all this and all that park up somewhere? The grass is growing over them, the corita vines is growing over them, but it's staying there. They ain't going nowhere. And we got to clean it up.
Well, I'll tell you what.
It's going to cost money to clean up.
I'll tell you what, Mr. Prime Minister, and I use that term from my American background, that he's definitely Prime Minister, former Prime Minister. You know, if I use the term Mr. Prime Minister tomorrow, everybody say, well, he's not Prime Minister anymore. We have a problem on this island, not giving people the respect of the office they held after they've left, and that's quite unfortunate, you know. But you serve as Prime Minister for 9 months, and you serve...
I think it was 11 months.
11 months?
I don't remember.
And the Nelson, so we're happy to have you here talking about a lot of different things. I tell you what, Mr. Gumbs, I have to go to a break, all right? Yeah. So when I come back, I'll continue right here on Earl Gibbs Live with the former Prime Minister of St. Maarten on Hot 99.9 FM radio. Right back, please do this.
Hey, don't guess about your insurance. Be sure that you're covered. like with your car, like your home. Be sure to be covered in case of a fire, flood, hurricane, or some other natural disaster. And travel insurance, because you never know what could happen when you're on vacation. You could lose your passport, your luggage, or have an accident. So be sure that you're covered.
Insure yourself fast and easy with Be Sure from the Windward Islands Bank Limited. Visit your preferred WIB branch, WIB Insurance Services, or BeSureStMartin.com. Get your Be Sure insurance at the Windward Islands Bank, your partners in progress.
For real? Somebody came in here and steal my curtains? Well, it's a good thing I'm insured with Be Sure, because even the contents of my apartment are covered. Don't play guessing games with your insurance. Be sure.
Are you be sure? Be sure.
My guest on Oral Gibbs Live is former Prime Minister Sir Maarten and former member of the steering committee, Mr. Marcel Gumbs. We're here to speak with him. You've been involved in the whole process from your days on the steering committee, and there's this fund, this disaster reserve fund. Where did that come from?
Oral, the disaster reserve fund.
Mm-hmm.
Well, part of the process in the fund, in the steering committee, was an allocating of funds. And at a certain moment, the airport, Princess Juliana International Airport, they needed funds, and also they did a co-financing was arranged with the European Investment Bank, where the European Investment Bank provided a loan because the steering committee thought there was actually too much money just for the airport, because people say, yeah, but for the airport, too much money. We also had, not airport alone, but we had a big issue that came up that was not really caused by the hurricane, but it's a big problem to solve, which is a dump.
Yeah.
So the dump, because of the health issues and it being in town and everything that goes with the dump, monies were allocated. The government wanted some things done with the dump, so monies was allocated for the dump, some $60 or $80 million. But with the airport, at a certain moment from the trust fund, there was $90 million allocated, $10 million in liquidity aid, and $80 million for the reconstruction. But the money from the Netherlands through the World Bank that the steering committee approved is a grant. A grant, it means that the St. Maarten government or nobody in St. Maarten has to pay this back to Holland. This is free money. So at a certain moment, the decision was taken, we're going to give the money to the airport, allocate the money to the airport as a grant. And somewhere along there, the thoughts came up, give it to the government as a grant with the condition that government gives it to the airport as a loan. Because, you're going to have a change in management at the airport, if there was a shift in government. So to tie it down, the airport got a loan from government. The money from the World Bank went to government, free, and the steering committee put a condition, government, you're going to give the airport the money to the airport as a loan, with the same conditions as the European Investment Bank, which I think is 3 or 4% and 20 years to pay back. So that money that the airport has to pay back government, the steering committee went a step further and said, government, that money, you cannot put it on your budget, or you cannot use it to pay off any old bills, because there were interest from government, certain ministers. They wanted to take that money that the airport is going to pay back to government, for government to pay off the debt by SZV.
That's a 90 million?
That's 80 million.
80 million.
Yeah, 10 million was the liquidity aid that they paid back. But so the steering committee said, no way, government, you can't give that money to SZV. Then another smart idea came up, we're going to use that money to pay the debt of government at APS, the pension fund. The government has a debt at APS. And then again, the steering committee said, no, that money is going into a fund. A fund, we call it the Disaster Reserve Fund, and that fund is to be prepared and be on standby in case there's a next hurricane, a next disaster, could be an earthquake or whatever, a natural disaster, that St. Maarten do not go on its knees begging neither Holland nor anybody for money. We will have a pot of money somewhere put aside that in case we get a natural disaster, that we can dip into that fund and help ourselves. And in the beginning, there was some people didn't really understand it, but eventually the Dutch came on board, the World Bank came on board. It's a beautiful idea, and it's the government also. This government also is supporting it. At the present now, the World Bank is making a framework of it, of how it would look, because it's important for this fund to have a good governance setup. A governance meaning how it's going to be governed. Okay. You want to have the right people and the right structure in it, so that it's managed well, and that some government doesn't come in and dip their hand in it, and to balance their budget or to do some project of development. It is there for a crisis, a disaster.
So is it 80 million guilders, dollars?
$80 million.
Okay.
The fund will have eventually, yes. And then the other part of it that the World Bank was asked to prepare is a management structure, and then an investment structure. Because there's one thing we learned...
To grow the fund, then. Yeah.
Yes, there's one thing we learned at the World Bank in this exercise of 5 years, is that money got to make money.
Right.
Money got to make money by investments. The monies that the Dutch send to St. Maarten, the 550 through the World Bank, it didn't just go in an account by the World Bank and was dormant there. It was invested, and money was made on the money. And that money that was made comes to St. Maarten also, is added to the fund. And then, so that's part of the framework, the management structure, the governance, how it's going to be governed, the investment part of it, and lastly, the definition of a crisis. Because you don't want to have a future Minister of Finance in there who comes in and says he's in a crisis because his budget is not balanced, and he's going to dip into this fund to get money to balance his budget. So that's one of the biggest. It's a good idea, a good plan. Everybody likes it. It's taking free money and making money in case of the next disaster.
Now, this fund will become active once the airports start repaying on that loan?
Well, that's the intention, but there's also some possibilities that the fund can be capitalized before that. Not before they start paying back, but before all the money is paid back. There's different ideas of how that can be done. You can capitalize it with a bond. The World Bank or any institution issues a bond, and you'll have maybe $30-40 million in the fund immediately, and that the payments from the airport will go to the bond holders in that sense.
I got to ask you a question, and this is not to put you in the spot. If you were Prime Minister now, in this coalition, this is all hypothetical, would you dissolve Parliament now, call for early elections by November of this year?
Why you ask me that? Let me tell you something. Before that, I have a lot of respect for the Prime Minister, and let me tell you, it's not easy governing under the circumstances, especially now. And nothing against anybody. It's just the reality and the decisions that people took. Yeah. It's extremely difficult to govern with a majority of 8 in a parliament of 15. And then the reality is, and I hope both of them gets better soon, we have 2 key players in the coalition government, MPs, that are having medical issues. MP Cookie is just had heart surgery, and so I wish him well. I wish he gets back fast. But reality is that when you do heart surgery, from the cases I know, it takes you a couple months to catch yourself. And then I understand MP Maarten is also not feeling well. So it's very difficult to how you say govern with when you have these issues in your majority section of your coalition. About dissolving, I don't know. There would have to be a reason to dissolve. If you can't get anything done through Parliament, because if Parliament comes at a standstill now, you can convince the opposition, or you can ask the opposition to render support, a quorum for a meeting.
Right.
But doesn't mean that whatever you bring to Parliament, the opposition is going to be in favor. So you'll be going to Parliament for the next 6 months without probably getting anything done until you get a majority back.
But this is a strange Parliament, Mr. Gumbs. You have more, what 9 factions in there?
Yeah. Well, that's the other aspect of it. You have a very very scattered Parliament. Yes.
I think the only party that didn't have any breakup was the PFP in that Parliament.
There's only 2 of them, so it's very difficult to have a fight between 2 people.
But party-wise is the only one that stayed. Actually, everyone was jumping here and there.
Yeah, you have a lot of jumping off. I wouldn't call it ship jumping off the train, jumping on the train. But what I want to emphasize what I just mentioned about the choice to make would be: are you going to continue? You ask the question: would I dissolve Parliament?
I think I meant once the coalition government, right, decides to call election, they have to dissolve what, Parliament or government?
Well,
what exactly? Because you know better than I do.
Yeah. No. What happened is that they can agree to disagree.
Okay.
Like what happened in the Dutch government. The Dutch government agreed to disagree on immigration matters. So they said, okay, we can continue further, and we stop here. That's what the Dutch government did. The VVD and the D66 in particular with the CDA, they couldn't reach an agreement on the policy to move on with the immigration matter. It's about bringing the immigrants, bringing their family. One party wanted them to bring their family, the other party said no, not no, and all that. So they decided to stop. In the case of St. Maarten that we have today, August 14th, you have a very peculiar case because you have a coalition of 8. 1 is out for serious surgery. It went well, I understand. I wish him well, Cookie. I hope he gets through, regain his full health. But that might take a while because I haven't heard of anyone doing bypass surgery and is able to work in 4 weeks' time or 5 weeks' time. That's one issue. And then you have another issue of, like I said, the other MP also having health issues. So then the coalition will lose 2 people and it will be down to 6. And I said, with 6, you can get the opposition, who is 7, to form a quorum to open the meeting and discuss whatever laws or whatever changes you want to bring. But doesn't mean that you have a majority automatically to pass whatever legislation you want to pass. So do you want to maintain that for the next 6 months until January election, or do you want to agree to disagree and stop the process now with the result that new elections will be called?
But based on your vast amount of experience in politics, will it be better for this current government to call elections for November instead of waiting for when it's constitutionally due in January of 2024?
I would think that's you got in life. Sometimes you got to quit while you're ahead. You got to quit while you're ahead. So, but I'm not in.
Explain that for my viewers, because when you say quit while you're ahead.
Sometimes when you're in a race, okay, and you're in a race, you're running, yeah, and it's and you see what's coming behind you. Okay,
yeah,
it's better you quit while you're ahead.
Yeah,
you're ahead now, so let me get out, let me quit.
And they have 90 days to prepare for it.
Well, yeah, I think it's 90 days. There's something there, whether it's a snap election or a thing election. I don't remember all the details of that. But it's very challenging governing now, and especially for the Prime Minister, keeping it together is extremely difficult.
Well, from your idea again, what about Christmas? You have an election just after Christmas or before Christmas. Which one you prefer?
Normally I would prefer, if it's by law and you got a steady, solid coalition of 10 against 5, you go through it. But when you're down to minimums, it's very shaky. And of course, all over in our Caribbean culture, elections during Christmas or campaigning during Christmas becomes very challenging.
Expensive too.
Well, yeah, if you're giving out, if you're spending.
So I noticed your reluctance to be very specific, but I assume that you go more for the early election in November than January, seeing the current situation right now.
Oh yeah, the current situation. If I had to decide, you're bringing me around the corner to answer the question.
They're watching the show, or they're listening to it.
Yeah,
the show.
I think from a perspective of getting things done properly, I think early. I wouldn't keep it till January.
I have to agree with you, and I don't have the kind of experience that you have.
Yeah.
I would go for the earlier time.
Yeah, because it's difficult governing. I mean, are you going to call a meeting in a parliament where you don't have the majority?
Yeah.
Forget the fact about a quorum. Okay? Yes, you call the opposition members and you tell them, listen, we need this thing. So you call the meeting. So you get a quorum. Okay? The meeting is called. Okay, you debate the law, you debate whatever you want to debate. And then after the debate, you have to vote. But guess what? Are you going to a debate? Are you going to a parliament to debate something that when the vote comes, you don't have the majority? No, I wouldn't do that. So, okay, you put it up for vote, opposition vote against you. Boom, close, law didn't pass. Be gone home. Next week we come back, another meeting. Opposition forms quorum with you. Okay? The meeting starts, the meeting open.
Yeah.
The second law is debated, or the second resolution, whatever is debated, and second round, first round, second round. Come to a vote. Boom. You don't have a majority to vote for you. How long are you going to continue doing that? It only affects your credibility and your image. So I don't think any government, if I was in government, I wouldn't be going to a parliament where I don't have a majority to vote.
Yeah, it's a difficult times to govern.
Well, it's a difficult times to govern, but does it make sense to govern?
Yeah.
You govern when you can pass a law.
Right.
So what are we going to do? For the next 6 months until January, we ain't going to have no parliament meeting to pass a law. Because we don't have a majority.
Well, the continent, this is the first government to last a full term. That's important for this coalition.
Yeah, but they're only there because the opposition didn't want to get into government. Because they tried to break the government 3 times. 3 times they tried to break the government. And the opposition said, all opposition members said, no, we're not coming in. This is your baby, this is your mess, you put it together, finish it up. But you understand what I'm talking about? The explanation I'm giving about forming a quorum.
Yeah, you're right.
And also not being able to do anything.
Yeah.
You become a impotent government. You can't get anything done.
Exactly.
Because you don't have a majority.
How do you see the present political environment and the new political parties that are forming to contest the parliamentary elections?
Interesting. Democracy at work. Democracy at work. Everybody is gearing up. And I'm going to tell you something. The way the preparation and the presentation of candidates been going on for the last 3 months, I mean, TV One and all can see that the election's coming soon. Because who will be preparing, like the parties are preparing, and candidates, and every day a presentation, and this and that, and party congress.
But it's good to see old DP back.
Yeah, DP is they back. They got a DP is working hard to get traction and get moving, but they have to go through an exercise of going to get people to support their list, to legalize the list.
I think they will get that. You know.
Yeah, they will get that. They will get that.
How do you think about Dr. Marcelina?
Interesting. He's picking up a lot of former candidates.
Yeah, you got Gracita on board with him.
You got Gracita, you got Ortega. No, sorry. No.
Ortega DP.
Don't confuse me. I don't follow it that well, but it's to see how it goes. I think the voting public will have quite a spectrum to choose from.
PFP now have Ludmilla on the list with them.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah. I read that. I read Ludmilla de Viva. Yeah.
This is going to be a very interesting year.
Yeah. Yes, very interesting. Very interesting, and we're going to see how the voters will decide. You know, the important thing is to keep the elections as fair as possible. You know, so that everyone will have a fair chance in it. And the voters also will be able to be at freedom to confident of voting who they want.
Well, I'm just about out of time, so anything else you'd like to add in closing?
No, thank you very much. Your questions were most welcome. I hope I answered all of them.
You answered them very well, very informative.
And, you know, it's, I told someone I was going to be on your program, and they said, are you going to give advice again? I said, no, I'm going to be doing what I love doing the most lately, is transferring knowledge.
Yeah.
So,
but you gave some advice today, too.
I gave some advice?
Oh, yeah.
I hope I have transferred some knowledge to you and your viewers. It's been a pleasure. Always nice to, you know, not doing anything particular now, so got a lot of time to reflect and to look around and, you know, advise.
Well, thank you again, and much success, Mr. Gumbs. All right?
Thank you very much.
All right.
Much success with your program.
Thank you. And that's it for now on Oral Gibbs Live on Hot 99.9 FM radio, Facebook, and YouTube. See you next time. Take care. Bye.